congratulations to everyone at Brand Innovators.
Yay, Brand Innovators. And yeah, I think it's totally fitting that you were able to join us on this celebration of 10 years.
How about it?
Yeah, those are pretty awesome. And I've been looking forward to this all day. Honestly, this is like the best part of my day, getting to spend 40 minutes, give or take, with you. So I really appreciate your time. Before we dig in, I wanted to do just a couple of what I thought were interesting facts to level set. I know you and I have been in this business together for a while, and our paths have crossed in various places. So I looked back at 2011. I was like, let me get my head around what was going on in 2011. And a couple of fun facts: Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows Part 2 was the #1 movie. Games of Thrones launched. Facebook was only 7 years old, started in 2004. And then my favorite was the US cell telephone that were actually smartphones were 30%. So 30% of all cell phones were smartphones in 2011. Today, 85% are smartphones.
And what I remember about 2011 is I was in the beer business at the time, working at Miller Coors, and 2011 was the year that Coors Light overtook Bud Light. Or sorry,
I remember that.
Coors Light was the year Coors Light overtook Budweiser as the #2 beer brand in the country, which was a huge, amazing feat for that brand. So
it was huge.
I have lots of friends at ABI now because I served on the board of a company that was acquired by them. So, no disrespect to my friends at ABI, but it's a competitive business. And that was a huge, huge year for Coors Light.
I actually remember that. It was huge. That was a big deal.
It was.
So welcome, and we'll get started. When you and I chatted before, which I really enjoyed, and I think I'm going to impose on you to have those chats every once in a while, because I really just enjoyed it so much. And I'm looking forward for us to share that with the greater audience. But when you and I thought about, let's talk about what it was like and kind of where we are now and how you're seeing the future, your take on it, which I love, was let's talk about what's not going to change. As we look at marketing and media and this business, what isn't going to change. So let's start with that. Tell us what you think is not going to change.
Yeah, well, I think you have to start there because because otherwise you wind up chasing shiny objects and going after things that might or might not be completely baked or proven with the consumer yet. I mean, you have to take risks, but you can't forget where we came from. And so, and here's what I believe about that. I say all the time, fundamentally, the role of marketing hasn't changed in decades. Our role is to create demand. So despite all of the industry discussion over the last several years over what our titles are, is it growth? Is it brand? Is it demand? What should we be called? Is not what matters. What matters is what we do, and that is create demand. And that's been true ever since the discipline existed. Why did people advertise in the first place? To create demand, to shift share. It's proven in countries, this was true in the beer business, in countries where retail is regulated and advertising is regulated, is when you do not see share shift. That's because there's no marketing. That's because you're not creating demand. And so it starts with creating demand. Now, for me, creating demand means 3 things. First of all, and these also haven't changed and will never change. Number 1 is about understanding your consumer better than anybody else. In fact, maybe even better than they understand themselves. Number 2 then is finding those ideas, those sparks. What is it that within those insights that you know about consumers, what you know better than anyone else, what is it that is the idea that you can come up with that will resonate with them and make your brand feel like a part of their lives, that you understand them, you get them, and you've got solutions that fit their lives. And then the third thing is to execute those ideas with excellence, with fun, with passion, in profitable ways, in ways that are compelling to get it on the shelf or to get the feet in the door. So it's all about creating demand, understanding consumers, coming up with those ideas, and then executing them flawlessly in order to bring those ideas to life and that understanding to life. That'll never change. That's what we do.
And I love that. I love that definition and that explanation. it fits across wherever you happen to be sitting from your perspective. So those are the things we understand fundamentally for you are not going to change, whether you're sitting as CMO at Bojangles or somewhere else in your career. So what do you see changing? I think you and I, the way you positioned it to me when we first spoke was, the what you just described is not going to change, but the how, in other words, how you build that and how you're getting there, all of that is in play, and especially coming out of what we just experienced.
For sure.
So, let's start off talking about, I was putting off having lunch, although I know when you start talking about your food, I'm going to get really hungry. But let's start talking about, the how, what's changed for you, being at Bojangles or just in general.
Yeah. Well, and so I would just put this at the opposite end of the spectrum of what will never change is it's all changed. In many respects. I mean, it's kind of all changed, but that can become overwhelming, and then you get paralyzed and you don't know what to do. And I guess, for me, it boils down to a couple of things that are consumer trends that many have identified, but I think are really important to talk about today. The first one is, I think the ANA or someone declared the word of the year last year in 2020, pivot. I actually don't think that's the word of the year. We did a lot of it, but I think the word of the year is accelerate.
Oh, wow.
I think what happened in the pandemic is a lot of things that were percolating just shot up because of the circumstances that people found themselves in, and because of marketers' need to create demand and watching those consumer behaviors and seeing them change so quickly. So I'm not sure, in our business, for example, food delivery. Well, it was there. People were using DoorDash. People were using Uber Eats. They were, I set up the first Uber Eats program at Krispy Kreme in 2016. It's not like that was new, but oh my gosh, kind of like your point about cell phones from 2011. But that was 10 years ago. We're seeing those kinds of shifts happen now in a 12-month time period. So I think there's so many things that are accelerating, and the biggest one, so my second big key takeaway of what's changing is convenience. So suddenly, again, not like we didn't know that consumers wanted more convenience, wanted things their way, the importance of customization, the importance of targeting and really understanding relevance, all of that was there, but that accelerated through the last year, and convenience is now, the name of the game. I mean, you will win if you are the most convenient, if you have the most frictionless experience, and this is in all of retail, not just restaurant. If you have the frictionless experience, if you have what you want when you want it, if you have, the ability to get it any way you want to get it, you're going to win. And so I think, we could talk about a lot of changes taking place in media or in advertising, but really for me, the change is about the acceleration now that the consumers seem to be on, and particularly as it relates to the importance that convenience will play in their lives.
Yeah, I think we've gotten a taste of the convenience, to your point, brought on by the pandemic and the inability to go and come and go as we please. I liken it a little bit to like when we first got microwaves, which I'm not dating myself, but when we first got microwaves and we thought that was so fast, right, to heat something or cook something in a minute. And now to us, 60 seconds seems like we're waiting way too long.
Right.
So I feel that in the industry, and nowhere maybe in any other industry as more as in the industry that you're in with food. I mean, incredible pressure to be able to meet those demands and those goals. And I think we touched a little bit upon with Bojangles, you guys were kind of already set up, as you said, you have some delivery and you have drive-throughs and that sort of thing to benefit from what might have been a challenge for other places. So talk a little bit about that, about how did you guys come out of last year and how are you positioning? Are there things you're going to keep that you picked up along the way?
Yeah. Well, this is kind of the acceleration point, I guess I would say is, we have this big, beautiful, we call it the big bow box right here. And it really is a big box that has that can fit 8, 12, or 20 pieces of fried chicken, 2 sides, we call them fixins because we are a Southern brand, and a half gallon of tea, all in one box. I mean, it is a meal to go, and it's been around. It's been around right about 10 years. It was founded in, the Big Bow Box came to be in 2010. So, so that's fitting for today. So it's been around. Well, all of a sudden now, you know, it turns out that this is, first of all, it's comfort food. Secondly, it's at a great price. Feed a family of 4 for 20 bucks, including the tea, including your choice of sides, and which nobody else does. And you can get it through a drive-through window or on delivery. So all of a sudden, what has been a great icon and a wonderful business for this brand became an accelerated business for this brand, and really helped us figure out that, you know, this is a place where we can really double down is on our dinner business. So, you know, another example would be delivery. We had planned, we were ramping into delivery when COVID hit last year, and we launched it in 6 weeks. And it's been very good for our business, because guess what? This box travels. So all you do is put the safety cords on it, and it goes. And moms tell us that having that full meal to serve their family feels more like a family meal than everybody choosing their own a la carte, whatever it is. Everyone's eating the same thing. It's home cooked food, which, by the way, at Bojangles, it really is. We don't own a microwave, Lesa. We have no microwaves in our kitchens. Everything is cooked from scratch. And so, you know, it really is, even our coleslaw is made in-house. So it really is a home cooked meal. And like I said, talk about having crown jewels that just suddenly played into what really mattered to consumers. This is the point. Understand them. What is it that they need better than anyone, and then execute those ideas flawlessly. We were pleased with the results.
That's great. It's great to be on the upside of some of that acceleration, you know, and not having to pivot and try to catch up. So, and then being able to keep those trends moving forward. One of the things in the how of what is changing, especially in our industry, which was another interesting thing I looked at from 2011, that, you know, social media was like a very small, if even mentioned, right? And now it's become a bigger conversation, and is affecting media as a whole.
Right.
I'd love to hear your take just on, you know, the whole influencer thing is new. Like, you know, back in 2011, there was no discussion about an influencer.
Right.
So talk about how you're thinking and your media plans, or do you think about the social space, or how are you incorporating that?
We absolutely do, and in fact, it's one of the questions in the chat about incredible innovation across all industry, innovative ways we're connecting to consumers today. You know, it has a lot to do with influencers and social media. So for those of you who don't live in one of our 10 states, Bojangles is a 40-year-old chicken and biscuit brand that does have a drive-through window, so we're a QSR, but we're not, because of how we make our food. Like I said earlier, it's our chicken is hand breaded. Our biscuits are made from scratch, and then we have these wonderful things like country ham and pimento cheese, and you know, so we're a little bit different kind of restaurant than traditional QSR because of our food. It is also very flavorful. We are unapologetic about our bold flavors, and that was what our founders originally intended, was a place that people could love the food, but get it at a great price, great speed, great value, and that's where we have doubled down today. But where the innovation comes in, and to your point about influencers, is as a result in our core markets. I mean, we're really a passion brand. Those of you who may have gone through the Charlotte airport or the Atlanta airports and had Bojangles there, perhaps, or you've come to the North Carolina shore and had Bojangles. I mean, people in our core markets are passionate about our flavor and about our food. And so that's just the perfect environment to have passionate people talk about our Bo brand. In fact, our slogan for 10 years has been, "It's Bo time." And you hear people say that around here, you know, just normal normal folks talk about bow time and what that means to them. And it's all about spicing up the family occasion just a bit. And so how do you take that and turn it into something meaningful and organic and engaging is about talking to our consumers and getting more of them. So social is the perfect place to do that for bow time to come to life. And over the last year, 18 months ago or so, a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk joined our board. So some of you, if not all of you, know who Gary is. Very, accomplished and an incredible thinker in the social space and in many other spaces too, wine and NFTs and sports memorabilia and a lot of, and the New York Jets. But he and his team have really helped us think through how we tap into that passion and how we use our media, both owned and paid, to create earned media that really continues to drive and creates kind of a flywheel of what that Bojangles passion is all about. So, I inherited a brand that was I've been here a little over 2 years, that was 98% television and worked very well for us for many, many, many years. And I'm not going to tell you what we are today because we're private, but we're not 90%, 98% television anymore. And a lot of that has to do with how we're bringing that passion to life.
Yeah, well, 98 is a big chunk. Well, that's great. And I love the way that you're thinking about and tying in social and making the brand, taking a fun brand and expounding on that. And then being able really from your position, which is, I just think it's so much fun to be sitting at a brand like you have with overseeing all the control. Like you don't have it all siloed. It's something that you can get your hands around and be a part of all of those pieces so that you start to have a holistic view. Right. But it's really interesting and fun to watch how you're executing that. Because to your point, understanding your consumer as well as you do, having all those things that are not changed and embracing the things that are changing, it does take some nerve to lean into new areas, right? That's a new avenue, a new path. It's test and learn. It's that sort of thing. So with your experience from coming from bigger brands, do you find more freedom?
Oh yeah, for sure. But I was going to tell you, this is the book I'm reading right now. Can you guys see this? Let me see.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Feel the fear. Do it anyway.
I can't see myself on here. So
yeah, we can see it.
See it? There it is. Feel the fear and do it anyway. So, it's all about
words to live by.
Words to live by, right? And apparently I just heard about it about a month ago. It's been in existence for 20 good years, but I'm really enjoying it because it's a reminder of exactly what you said, Lesa, is sometimes it can be a little scary, but you know what? Do it anyway. Do it.
Nice. And I think it's then you have the learnings, whether it's a success in your eyes or not, you have a learning from that, and then you can step out and again.
Right. So back to your question about big brands versus small versus a brand of this size. Yeah, I mean, that's first of all, I'm here because of our incredible leadership team. Jose Armario is our CEO, and Jose and I worked together when I was at McDonald's. He was president of Latin America at the time. So, and there's a couple of other former McDonald's people here too. So it feels a little bit like getting the band back together. But Jose is just an incredible leader, a very humble and kind leader, but make no mistake, fire in the belly for winning and for getting the business right, both for our company stores as well as our franchisees. We are a franchised business, and so their success is our success. But I also, I'm incredibly grateful for my big company experiences at McDonald's and Miller Coors and General Mills, because I learned so much, and because the talent is so incredible. And especially in Miller Coors and General Mills, multi-brand companies where you have to figure out, and in both of those situations, there are, how do you keep these brands from stepping all over one another? Really interesting business challenges, and a lot of fun to carry a lot of clout too. In all of those instances, I ran sports and entertainment or media, and there's a lot to be said for big companies and the agencies that they surround themselves with, and the idea factories that come to life. But, you know, between Krispy Kreme and Bojangles, you know, you have to be scrappy and you have to do it yourself. And you have to bring the team along with you. And you just have more ability to impact the business and the team. So, you know, I'm in a place now where I can impact the culture here. I can't sit around anymore and say, well, I like it or I don't like it. I mean, I have an impact on what the culture is like and what the team is like. And, you know, I'm finding that I really love these businesses where I can be a big fish in a little pond and really make a difference in the lives of our consumers, in the lives of our team members, and work together side by side with just some really excellent leaders.
Yeah, and be a great influencer. I mean, I think that sounds so exciting. And you know, to your point, when you come from those big brands, which listen, those are fabulous as well. To your point, they're fabulous. But you have a lot more restrictions. It's not as, you can't pivot as quickly. So going back to things that didn't change, or even this could fall under any of our topics because you could do it with fearlessness. You've been there a couple of years. What's one of the first things you did when you got there? What are one of the first things, you know, I know you talked about the 98% TV, but what else did you do at Bojangles when you first got on board?
Well, for me, it all starts with the consumer. So you're probably figuring that out by now. It all starts with the consumer, and we didn't have a sharp enough point on who exactly we wanted our consumer, who we wanted to create demand with. And so, look, we're a mass brand. We welcome everyone. We have quite a diverse consumer base because we're in rural Carolina towns. We're in big cities like Charlotte and Atlanta and Nashville. So we have a very diverse customer base, whether that's race, whether that's income level, whether that's, you know, occupations and mindsets and ages, and, you know, any way you want to cut it. But I've always believed that you have to know who you want to be for somebody. Otherwise, you're nothing to nobody. And so we had to really define that. It wasn't clear enough for us to be able to truly execute against that. And so it starts with the consumer. So worked with a fantastic agency out of San Francisco, Sterling Brands. Some of you may know them. They had done similar work for me at Krispy Kreme. And so it was an easy get. You know, I was really pleased with them and knew immediately they could come in. They knew me, they knew how I worked, and I knew them and had a lot of confidence in our ability to move fast to be able to make this happen. And so, because I started on April 8th, and on July 8th, exactly 90 days later, I had to stand up in front of 800 or so of our best and most admired and fabulous franchisees and have a point of view. Yeah. And so we had to move fast, and it started with the consumer for me. And then we start to move through the marketing model, you know, the big Bo box and the brand and my flag you see behind me. You know, the brand identity of Bojangles had not been worked on in 40 years. So, you know, if we're going to look more modern and up with the times and up to date and be a part of consumers' lives today, we have to look like that too. And so, so we started taking those steps. That takes time, as you know. I've still got an old cup here because we haven't completely flown through all the packaging yet. But, you know, it was important to get that visual identity to start to make a statement with our consumers. And frankly, with our franchisees and with our crew members, I mean, you want them to have products that they're proud to sell. And when customers say, oh, that looks cool, or, oh, I love my big Bo box, you know, they're proud too. And that matters as well.
That's awesome. So you made a little change, did you not, to the logo? Do you want to talk about, because I love the story of if you want to share the story about the.
Well, sure. So, you know, we're not a brand that seeks a lot of attention because we just want to do great work and be a great business and a great place to work. But about a year ago, one of the Charlotte media outlets discovered our new packaging and called and said, hey, what's up? Because like I said, around here, it's bow time is a part of culture, and big Bo boxes are a part of people's lives and what they bring home for dinner. So we got noticed. And all they could, so we said exactly what I just said. We're making sure that we're up with the times. It's still Bojangles, and so we hope you like it. And what they pointed out was in the old design, because once upon a time it used to be Bojangles chicken and biscuits. Now it's just Bojangles. So there was all of you grammarians out there, where did the apostrophe belong for Bojangles chicken and biscuits? It belonged after the S, right? Bojangles apostrophe, because it was, possessive, chicken and biscuits. Well, once we dropped that, we no longer needed the apostrophe. And it had kind of become superfluous anyway. And oh my gosh, this reporter couldn't get over the fact that we had dropped the apostrophe. So,
I just think that's hysterical that the one
but what it shows you is what a passion brand it is around here, is that people notice that we dropped the apostrophe, for Pete's sake.
And wow. It speaks to be what you were saying about taking those risks. When you come in a 90-day period or a year to a legacy brand of 40 years and suggest making that kind of change, it plays to the strength of being the size of the company that you can respond and actually do that, rather than wait for 4 years for that to be approved. So I just think it was a bold move, but it seems to have served you well.
Well, I thank you. I appreciate that. I guess what really matters is in any of these transformations that I've been a part of, and I've been a part of a lot of them, is you go back to what made you famous in the first place. It's bow time, and Bojangles' passion came from somewhere. It came from the food. And so, making sure that our packaging, that our graphic standards, that our brand is living up to our food and is celebrating our food, once you figure out what made you famous in the first place, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's a lot easier to make decisions as long as you've got that as your true north.
Yeah, you've got a brand identity as your North Star. And adding to that, when we spoke about you understanding your consumer and your brand and really bringing that together, I think the next step that I found interesting, especially from your perspective, is your competitive set. The thing that we talked about, again, that's not going to change, is you've got to understand who your competition is.
Yeah.
And for you guys, it's varied, right? Talk a little bit about that, how you think about competitive space.
Yeah. So we are another place where we're fairly unique in this industry is that we truly have 3 day parts. So I mentioned earlier that we make our biscuits from scratch every day, every hour, if we need to, which in the mornings we do. And so, in fact, we do about 40% of our business before 11 a.m., which is when our chicken competitors are opening their doors. So, but then we also have a robust lunch business, as everyone in QSR does. And then we've got this big bow box dinner business. So if you think about the QSR competitive set, there are guys who are good at breakfast and lunch. There are guys who are good at lunch and dinner. It's hard to be good at all 3. But it's interesting, Lesa, when you and I were chatting last week, I mentioned to you, I have an addendum to that comment, which is that I mentioned to you, I have kept on my desk and glance at fairly frequently a Harvard Business Review article from March that's called 10 Truths About Marketing After the Pandemic. And one of those is relevant to this question. It sets up these 10 truths as an old truth and a new truth. And so the old truth is you are competing with your competitors. And the new truth is you are competing with the last best experience your customer had.
Wow.
That really, I told you I was going to go back and review these before our talk today, and I did. And that one really, really resonates with me. Consumer expectations were already on the rise. And you have to, whatever was the last best experience in the restaurant business, whether that was on an app, whether that was in a restaurant, whether that was at an Olive Garden or at a KFC or hopefully at a Bojangles, whatever that last best experience was, is now the expectation for everyone. That's a high bar.
That's a high bar.
But I think it's an important way to think about it.
I think it's a great North Star, right? Whether you're sitting at Bojangles or at Ampersand, it's a great North Star to have to lead your perspective.
right?
So as you think about the next 10 years, which is really hard for me to get my head around, what do you see as like, from a macro perspective, are there changes within the industry of media and marketing per se that you think are going to shift or change, or a trend you feel like is coming?
I read the same things that everybody else reads every day about the continued fragmentation of media and the growing, streaming and moves away from standard terrestrial or cable television, traditional TV, I'll call it, I guess. And I think that's a trend that's not going to stop. It's that's another one that accelerated. But I think changing media mix, I kind of, grew up in the media world. So I'm focused on this. I love the media world because I think it is the place where today you have to understand consumers better than anyone, because if you don't know, what device to find them on or what platform to find them on, you're not going to win. I think just the ongoing media changing landscape is something we will all have to stay on top of. I don't know what it's going to look like in the future, but I know whatever it looks like, we're going to have to be there.
Yeah, and we talked about, a little bit last week about how do we do that? Talking about the first party data that you now have available to you because you guys launched an app that helps you identify your consumer and relate. All those pieces coming together that help you know your consumer better, help you understand that last experience, to your point. And then, the trickier to me part, being with you along in this industry for a while, is how do you plan that? How do you, does it flip the media model from a traditional funnel? How do you think that's impacting how you're planning today?
Yeah, well, maybe I'm just fortunate enough to be working in a small brand right now, but we're very flexible. We use our size to our advantage. We do have franchisees and co-ops, and we have to make sure that we have a fiduciary responsibility to invest their funds wisely and to seek their approval to do so, but we can move really fast. So, actually one of the other questions in here has the crisis forced modifications to short, mid, long-term goals? And I would say short, mid, long-term execution as well. I think it has, but I would also say, if you're in retail, and those of you who are in retail, this. I say I get my performance review by our consumers at 6:39 a.m. every day when I get a sales report. So there's nothing more short-term than daily, maybe hourly, but daily. There's nothing more short-term than that. And that is how I've lived in retail environments for a very long time. So of course there are short-term goals in retail. I think the question around how you navigate, and I won't even say balance, I hate that word. Balance assumes everything, both are equal, and I don't think they are. They may equal out over time, but at any given day or week or month, thinking about the long term versus the short term, there are just days when it's all about the short term, and days
it's all short, yeah, no matter.
There just are. And so, but what I do think is this is the true test of leadership right now, is first of all, to make sure that our people are motivated and learning and growing. That's always the job of leadership. But I also think managing and navigating the short term and the long term is more difficult than it's ever been. But we must. It is incumbent upon us to keep an eye on both.
Yeah, I don't know how you win without doing that. It's right. Moving, the acceleration, all the things that we've talked about in the conversation today, all those things point to being able to be nimble and flexible in your planning and your thinking and in your execution. That's right. One of the questions I wanted to answer, we've got a few more minutes before, and you've answered a couple of the questions, so that's awesome. When you think about your competitors, and you said, yours are specific day parts. So you have your breakfast competitor, you have your dinner competitor. Do you speak, obviously, different creatives to each one of those? Are you looking at it? How are you thinking about, is it size? Think about that competitive? I'm just interested in how you target that.
Yeah, we do know who visits us by day part, and so we can target them accordingly, and we do. But it's all, at the end of the day, it's still one brand. It's bow time. What does it's bow time mean at breakfast, lunch, or dinner? What does it's bow time mean for a mom versus a single college student, understanding those differences and then targeting not just the media, but of course, then what message are you delivering that's going to be most relevant to them? I mean, yes, we think about that all the time. But it all hangs together.
Same brand.
It's one brand and it's one restaurant, so we don't have the luxury of saying, well, it's a different experience at Walmart than it is at Kroger or Harris Teeter. It's one restaurant, and it has to be a consistent and good, you're competing with the best experience your customer had. So that's what it is.
Yep, I love that. I'm gonna have to steal that. That's a high bar, but I like it. One of the last things as we get towards the end of our conversation that I really wanted you to expound upon was, we talked a little bit about the difference between purpose and passion.
Yeah. Look, I've read a lot, I've thought a lot about the whole purpose-driven brand movement. I think there's a lot of good there, because I think it makes people think about something more than just what's sitting on a shelf or what's going out the drive-through window today. I tend to think, though, that your purpose needs to come from, again, your customers. And what are they passionate about? So, I talked about moms and big bow boxes. If I've got moms who are passionate about bringing home a real family meal because they don't have time and it's a good value, but they feel fulfilled because they brought home a real family meal, that's my purpose. I don't need to go find a purpose. Our purpose is rooted in what our customers' passions are. If I've got a construction worker, and we've got a lot of construction workers because the South is growing and we are a great value for construction workers, who wants a styrofoam cup, that 32-ounce styrofoam cup full of Mountain Dew to take on the job site, or sweet tea to take on the job site because that styrofoam cup will keep it cold for the day. My job is to find a styrofoam cup that's recyclable. My job is not to say we have to save the planet, so we're not going to do styrofoam anymore. My customer wants that cup. So I have to figure out a way to do both. But his passion is, and we hear this from people, I'm not making this up. I go to Bojangles because my sweet tea is going to last all day long, because the styrofoam cup is keeping it cold, and we actually do have ice that deliberately does not melt fast so that it doesn't dilute the beverage and it stays cold longer. Those things matter to my customers. They're passionate about them, so I am too.
I love that. Hi, Davina.
Hi, guys. Sounds like free water bottles, right? For the construction audience.
I don't know. I'm so hungry for chicken and biscuits now. I don't know what.
It's expensive too. Yeah. How, Jackie, they are so lucky to have you. You have such a great background, and the audience today have really enjoyed listening to both of you. I wanted to just kind of summarize some of the takeaways. So the role of marketing, as you said, it hasn't changed in decades. It's about driving demand. I would add to that, but at least today we can measure the demand that you're driving a little better, right?
Absolutely.
It all starts with the consumer, and we've been hearing that, throughout the day today, but I think it's something that we always need to remember, and that convenience is the name of the game, frictionless experience. We love that at Ampersand. We're trying to do the same for the media industry. And then I was really fascinated with, you're now competing with the consumer's last best experience. And I would almost think too